Jay?
Petition for a music and entertainment license pursuant to Chapter 3, Section 3-8 of the City of North Miami Code of Ordinances in the M1 Zoning District, Sunny Owl's Eatery Incorporated, 151 Street, Holdings LLC, 2050 Northeast, 151st Street, North Miami, Florida. And Mayor, and since this is a matter that involves a quasi-judicial matter, anyone who wishes to be heard on tab J, may you please stand and raise your right hand because you have to be sworn. Is that okay, Mayor?
Yes, sure.
Tab J, if anyone wishes to be heard on tab J, please stand up and raise your right hand.
Including the attorney?
Is there anyone who's going to speak on it?
I don't think that.
Last call, anyone to be heard on tab J, may you please raise your right hand.
There's one man, former Mayor Kevin Byrne has raised his hand.
Okay.
Is it the attorneys?
Do you solemnly, I'm sorry, Councilwoman. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, please say, I do. Thank you. Proceed.
All right, thank you. Can we hear from the applicant? Is there any additional presentation from city staff or the applicant?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Maxine Calloway, Community Planning and Development Department. Staff is recommending approval of the board order to grant a music and entertainment license to Sunny Isle Eatery, located at 2050 Northeast 151st Street in North Miami. The applicant was before the Board of Adjustment, who rendered a vote of 5-2 to approve the application, subject to the 7 conditions as listed in the staff report.
Okay. Public hearing is open on tab J. Public hearing is open on just a public hearing. Any members of the public wishing to speak on tab J? Pastor Jack?
Did you swear?
I'm sorry, Pastor Jack, did you raise your hand to be sworn in?
Is tab J about the public transportation, or is it about the eatery?
It's not. It's not public transportation now.
Okay, that was confused.
Tab J about the eatery. The Sunny Owl Eatery, what I read out on the record.
It's the eatery.
Okay, it's not. It's not transportation.
Okay, so this is tab A K. I thought you said J.
It is J. It's tab J here in my book.
Tab J as Jack.
Okay, so is this about the eatery?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. That's probably a mistake.
Tab K. It says tab K.
All right, what I have here in my... Okay, so it's the Sunny Owl Eatery. It's regarding the Sunny Owl Eatery, not the transportation.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. I'm sorry. That's apparently a different
But
copy.
I
You guys
have J though.
I have J as well.
You guys have the older version. We have the new one, but this is regarding the Sunny Owl Eatery.
Sure. Do I need to be sworn in?
No, you don't.
Okay.
But this is... If you want to speak on the transportation...
No, it's a resolution.
He wants to speak on Sunny Isles.
Sunny Isle Eatery.
Okay.
That's it.
So he needs to be sworn.
Let me swear you in. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth? Is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? And if so, please say I do. Thank you. Please proceed, Pastor.
Well, I still think that this adult license and the alcohol ban is not a good idea for the city, and I think that if there's any way for this license to not be granted legally, again, I don't know all the implications and all that needs to be done, but again, I still think that this is a bad decision for the city in the sense that I really believe that you're dealing with organized crime, and I'm making that indictment based on the research that we've done with strip clubs here in Miami, Angels that got their alcohol, that got their adult license taken away here on Dixie. If you look at who the owners are, these are individuals tied into organized crime. And I just want to be on the record. After 15 years of prostitution, I spoke to one of the key officials for Miami-Dade county, and he said after 15 years of prostitution and murders and different things that took place at Angels, they finally took away their adult license. And I think ultimately what you have with the eatery is white-collar crime. What you're going to have is a lot of corrupt businessmen, corrupt government officials involved in prostitution. Again, I think the record shows that most of these strip clubs in Miami-Dade are owned by organized criminals, predominantly Italians. Again, Angels is owned. The Angels is owned by Angels is owned by an Italian family that's involved in an issue in Davie concerning the murder of a young man, and again, I really believe on the record that this city is getting in trouble, and what's the most appalling thing about this is, Councilwoman Stero, you're Seventh-day Adventist, you're a Christian. Councilman Marcellus, you're a Christian, and Scott Galvin, you're a Christian, part of the Methodist Church in Miami, and this clearly violates the morals of your religion. You know, Jesus made it very clear that if you lust in your heart, you're worthy of damnation, Matthew chapter 5 and 6. So for you guys to have empowered them by taking away the alcohol ban, status quo that was there for 20 years, you went not only against what is clearly against your faith, but I believe you've opened up the door. And I believe in the next decade, it's recorded, and it will haunt you. It will bring a curse upon your home and upon the city, in a sense that as a Christian, as a person of faith, when you do things that go against your faith, these are fundamentals. These are not obscure teachings. You had no reason to remove the alcohol ban, but you did. And now you're going to give them this adult license, and you're opening up, because the Bible says, Galatians 5, you reap what you sow. He who sows to the flesh will reap destruction. The Lord said in Matthew 5, if you don't keep these teachings of mine and practice them, you will be called least in the kingdom. So again, I want to just highly challenge you in your faith. These are not interpretive debates. The Ten Commandments, the teachings on sexual ethics is clear. And this strip club is nothing but exploitation and evil. There's nothing good about strip clubs and this alcohol ban that you guys have removed, which hopefully by the power of the city we'll be able to get a referendum and get that vote changed. But again, I want to warn you that we cannot have this kind of evil, and it will come back to haunt us. Please do not give them this adult license. Get right with God, that you worship every Sunday. We use religion to get into office, but then we take financial deals in secret, and we allow corruption to make us contradict our own faith. And that should be. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor Jack.
Anybody who wishes to speak has to come up to the microphones and they'll be heard in turn. If they were sworn in, but if you weren't sworn in, then...
Anytime you want to swear me in.
Sorry.
Okay, go ahead, no problem. Cal.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, Council. My name is Carol Prager, and I live at 2509 Northeast 135th Street, North Miami, Florida. I am a Christian. I'm also a sinner, as everybody else in this room is. And I will not mock religion standing here. I will tell you, though, that I will only be judged by one individual, and that will be the God Almighty, and not an individual in this room. I'm coming to talk to you as a citizen, though. I want the council to pay very close attention to the legal explanation that is given to you about the decision you are going to make. I expect you to make the proper legal decision. To do otherwise is going to cost the taxpayers money. The city will have to go to court, it will have to defend itself, And more than likely, we will lose. And in losing, there will be damages. And so what I'm asking you to do is not pass judgment on whether or not this is a moral establishment in our city. I'm not asking you to measure the road. I'm not asking you to check out every individual that comes before you to verify that what they tell you is truthful under oath. What I'm asking you to do is to go to staff and to go to your legal counsel and get their recommendation. And be very, very certain about what they're giving you is correct information, and then vote accordingly. Because it will end up costing the taxpayers of the city money if you do anything other than that. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Mr. City Clerk, would you swear in the young man who's about to speak, please?
You solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And if you do, may you please say I do?
I do.
Thank you, sir.
Hello, Council. My name is Raymond Hughes. I live at 1691 Northeast 142nd Street. I'm not going to sit here and portray that I'm perfect. I've been to strip clubs. I honestly don't have a problem with them, but I have a problem with where you want to place this one. You want to put this one directly across the street from a junior high, elementary school, and a high school, and an FIU university. Have we not seen enough stories in the news about students raped, assaulted by men who were drunk, and some of their excuses in the news have been that they spent hours drinking and looking at porno or strip clubs, and then they got so sexually excited by that they went out and they did what they did? So basically, you're taking gas and dynamite and putting it across the street from a match. Do you really think that's a smart thing to do? But then again, I'm Italian, so like the gentleman said, what do I know?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council members. My name is Kevin Burns, 2065 Alameda Drive, North Miami, Florida. If you read your agenda, the topic is the approval of a music and entertainment license. As the person who helped create this particular ordinance, it served only one purpose. It was to make sure that anybody, whether you are a restaurant, a strip club, a gas station, a nightclub, that if you were going to play music after 11 o'clock at night, that you would come to the city, let us know, and we'd make sure that you would have plenty of parking, plenty of lights, and security. It didn't care if you were Mocha Cafe. It didn't care if you were Royal Castle. It didn't care if you were a strip club. The adult entertainment has nothing to do with this particular ordinance. It applies to all the businesses in North Miami. Again, if you're going to serve or play music after 11 o'clock at night, you must get this license. And again, it's only to make sure that these restaurants, it came about, the restaurants in 7th Avenue that were restaurants in the daytime, they became nightclubs at night. And so what we did, because the parking requirements weren't being met, the security, the police department didn't know where these places existed, we created that ordinance. And again, it has nothing to do with the type of establishment that is legally permitted where this particular place is going to go. And I happen to be Irish. I know there's some Irish gangsters around town. So make sure if you're going to condemn the Italians that you throw the Irish in and throw a few Jewish people in and a few others in there so that we're all inclusive in this city if we're all going to be made out to be bad guys. I believe that the city staff has done a good job in making the recommendations. And please, if you stick to the point of what's on the agenda and your staff recommendation, it's a very simple ordinance, and you're not establishing a license for anything else other than that somebody can actually play music or a DJ after 11 o'clock at night. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor. Anyone else wishes to be heard on this item? Hearing none, public hearing is now closed with tab J. My understanding is I don't think we have ever denied a petition for a music entertainment license before. Which may be a legal challenges if we get to court that I think, get sued and probably come back here again, having a judge to force us to give that license. Pastor Jack, the issue of a strip club is not before us. That's already been decided. That is res judicata. That's a separate issue that is not before us. The only thing that is before us is a petition for a music entertainment license, which my understanding staff has recommended approval for us to deny such a license. That would lead us to other issues and other problems. So I don't know if anyone else wishes to be heard from this city council. If not, we could move on for a vote. Anyone else who wishes to be heard? Okay, no one else wishes to be heard. Mr. City Clerk.
Mr. Mayor, while he's out of the room, I'll move approval. Well, I guess I should wait till he gets in the room so that we can.
Okay, it has been moved to for approval. Can we do this by roll call, please?
Can the city attorney call?
We have a meeting going on, Mr. City
Okay.
Clerk, though.
We'll have to get the board situated.
Okay, tab J has been moved for approval.
I moved approval, Mr. Etienne.
Okay, can you do this by roll call, please?
Councilman Galvin,
Yes.
Mayor Pierre,
Yes.
Councilman Blinn,
Yes.
Councilwoman Sterrill,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Marcellus.
Okay.
Measure passes 5-0.
Okay, tab K.
In ordinance of the Mayor and City Council of the City of North Miami, Florida, amending Chapter 29 of the City of North Miami Code of Ordinances entitled Land Development Regulations by amending Article 5, Division 12 entitled Landscaping and Screening, specifically at Section 5-1203 entitled General Standards to curtail or restrict certain uses of water to conserve available water resources during a declared water shortage or water shortage emergency, in accordance with the South Florida Water Management District regulations, providing for repeal, conflicts, severability, codification, and an effective date.
Okay, this is the second reading of tab K. Public hearing is open to tab K. Anyone wishes to be heard on tab K? Can I get a public hearing is not closed? Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Okay, has been moved. I seconded that motion. Councilman Blinn.
Well, part of this variance is that they stay open to 6 a.m. I'm against that portion of it.
No, this has to do with water restrictions.
This is water restriction, tab K.
No, excuse me, what happened?
Yeah, tab K.
All right. No, I'm for K.
Okay. It's for tab K. Vice Mayor Marsalis?
No questions.
No question. Councilman Galvin?
No questions, sir.
Councilwoman Sterrill? No question. Mr. City Clerk, roll call.
Mayor Pierre,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Marcellus,
Yes.
Councilman Blinn,
Yes.
Councilwoman Sterrill,
Yes.
Councilman Galvin.
Yes.
Measure passes 5-0.
Okay. Thank you. Tab L, Mr. City Clerk.
An ordinance of the Mayor and City Council of the City of North Miami, Florida, amending Chapter 7 of the Code of Ordinances entitled Finance under Article 3 entitled Procurement Code, specifically at Section 7-118 entitled Definitions, Section 7-120 entitled Application of this Code, Section 7-121 entitled Exceptions, and a new Section 7-153 entitled Purchase or Land of Real Property to provide for the inclusion and applicability of the Procurement Code to all real property purchases and leasehold transactions pursuant to statutory laws and in accordance with the powers vested to the city by the Florida Constitution, providing for repeal, conflicts, severability, codification, and an effective date.
Move it.
Okay, I'll second it. This is a first reading of the proposed ordinance. Public hearing is open on tab L. Public hearing is still open on tab L. Public hearing is not closed on tab L. Councilman Blinn?
No, this is something that's important to the city to
Okay.
have.
Councilman Marcellus?
No questions, sir.
Okay, Councilman Galvin?
No questions.
Councilwoman Sterrill?
No, sir.
Okay, Mr. City Clerk, roll call.
Vice Mayor Marcellus,
Yes.
Councilwoman Sterrill,
Yes.
Councilman Galvin,
Yes.
Mayor Pierre,
Yes.
and Councilman Blinn.
Yes.
Measure passes 5-0.
Okay, thank you. Tab M.
Discussion and approval of Radio Mega's North Miami Mega Nalaval. I know I mispronounced that, sorry. Celebration. And that's it.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Manager.
Yeah, Mayor, at the last minute request of the presenter that this item be removed, they're not here, and they ask respectfully that this item be removed from the agenda.
What happened?
Well, whenever they're ready to do their presentation, make sure they give us sufficient notice for that.
Yes.
Okay. Tab N.
Discussion regarding donation of city's garbage collection vehicles to Operation Green Leaves, not-for-profit organization.
Okay. Tab N is open for public hearing. Anyone wishes to be heard on tab N?
Mr. Mayor, may
Yes.
I, before you go, may I?
Sure.
I did look at the discussion. Actually, I did not have a chance to, I don't know who are those organizations is, and I didn't have a chance to meet with neither one of them. I don't want to vote against it tonight because of lack of information. I would rather have it move and come back before us when I have more information about this organization. Other than that, I will not vote for it.
Okay. Councilwoman has asked for this item to be pulled so she'll get a chance to meet with Operation Green Leaves prior to voting on this item tonight. So
Second that.
Tab N has been requested to be pulled by Councilwoman Steria, seconded by Councilman Blinn. Anyone wishes to record a no? Hearing none, tab N has been pulled. Please get a chance to meet with the individual council members that have questions regarding tab N. Tab O, discussion regarding city code on roof repair. I'm sorry, Mr. City Clerk, I took over your job.
No, we can switch roles whenever you want, Mayor.
No problem. Go ahead, you may
You
proceed.
guys want to switch?
Discussion regarding city's code on roof repair. Councilman Garvin.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I asked that this be put on the agenda. That there's a section of the city code that's several years old that basically states that all exterior surfaces of a home have to be painted. Obviously, you can understand that that would mean you want somebody's house to be in a nice condition. You don't want peeling paint on the walls and things like that. But our code department has begun interpreting that as the roof being painted. And if you drive around the city, I don't know what small fraction of the roofs in this city are actually painted. Some have shingles, some have tile, but they're not painted. The problem is our code department has started writing citations for people that don't have painted roofs, or they don't feel that the paint is in good enough condition. So I asked that this be put on the agenda so we could provide some clarification. If we decide that we want this interpretation of exterior surfaces to also apply to the roofs, get ready, 98% of North Miami, you're about to get a citation for not having your roof painted. But if we logically can assume that tiles, shingles, and other things don't mean that they need to be painted and we want to clean up the language or something like that, then we can do that. But I just wanted to get the council a chance to discuss it, perhaps give some direction to staff, because there are people waiting to go before Code Board right now that have potential violations, citations, fines coming for not having their roof painted.
Ms. City Attorney, can you help us out with that language?
Section 5-46 of the City Code reads, protective coating of surfaces. All exterior surfaces of a structure used for human habitation shall be painted as often as necessary with a protective coating which is designed for exterior use or is approved by the building official so that deterioration or peeling shall not occur. Let me read to you Miami-Dade County's code. All exterior surfaces subject to deterioration shall be properly maintained and protected from the elements by paint or other approved protective coating applied in a workmanlike fashion. Let me read to you the City of Miami's code. All exterior surfaces subject to deterioration shall be properly maintained and protected from the elements by paint or other approved protective coating applied in a workmanlike fashion. Let me read to you the City of Miami Beach's code. All exterior surfaces subject to deterioration shall be properly maintained and protected from the elements by paint or other approved protective coating applied in a workmanlike fashion. Let me read to you the City of Surfside's. All exterior surfaces subject to deterioration shall be properly maintained and protected from the elements by paint or other approved coating and applied in a workmanlike fashion.
We get it.
Okay. So most of the cities have these similar code provisions to describe all exterior surfaces, which not only indicates the roof, but all exterior surfaces. With respect to the painting, it's paint or protective coating, whatever that may be. And in terms of the interpretation, I think that we want to be careful to allow matters that are in the process before the code enforcement special magistrate to go through that process rather than taking it outside of the process and have it heard before council.
I've not asked that any specific homeowner or their situation be named. That resident, as far as I know, is still going before the code magistrate. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so we're no longer going to, from my standpoint, talk about that. Anything hinting at that resident, nothing to do with that resident.
Oh, okay, no, because I thought you said something about referencing people who are before the...
There are people that have been cited. We need to clean up this language. This is my opinion.
Okay.
It's too vague. It's too open-ended. 98% of the residents of this city don't have their roof painted. How you interpret what's sealed, not sealed, and a code officer can drive by from street level, eyeball it, and write the citation. I don't think that's good enough. I think it should be either more clear language or more clear step-by-step as to what the officer has to do, because 98% of the residents of this city don't have their roof painted.
With a protective coating? Or is that what you're referring to?
I have not climbed up there. Have you? I mean, that's the thing. If you're telling me that you know that 98, I'm just driving by like a layman.
Right.
I eyeball the roof just like our code officer did.
In a particular circumstance?
I'm talking about vague. I've paid more attention to roof painting in the last 3 months than I ever have in my life.
Okay.
On my street, I can name one with a white roof that's pristinely white that I can guess is probably painted and sealed. The others, they don't look sealed. I don't know. Are they sealed? Are they not sealed? Are they painted? Are they not painted?
Well, that's for the code compliance officer to make a determination. And if the person who was cited believes that their property is correctly coded, then they go before the special magistrate. If they're correct, then their case gets dismissed.
With
if they're
respect,
incorrect,
that's not fair to the resident who now has to take time out of their day to go prove something.
But that's how it works.
Yeah,
that's how it works.
I disagree with you. And Madam City Attorney, I'm going to now turn to my fellow council members. I asked that this be put on the agenda. I hear where you're coming from.
Okay.
I think that the language needs to be better strengthened to where we're talking about methodology by which the code officer can check whether or not it's sealed or not sealed, painted or not painted. I just don't think we should even extend it to roofs. At what point does a barrel tile roof need to be sealed again? After how many years? What documentation needs to be provided?
If you make it stringent, then you run into an issue as well. But okay.
So I guess the issue is, not extended the surfaces to roof. Is that the suggestion of the language that you want to change from the code, not extend it to roof, or just leave it on only the exterior, which is the four walls of the home?
I would suggest language that removes roofs from the original description and sets it aside, saying that a roof should be, if you want to call it sealed, that we come up with some parameters as to how long, how old that ceiling should be, and steps by which the officer judges that. I see this. Okay, I'm going to try not to look over there. It's not fair to the residents of this city to have an officer drive by at street level, eyeballing a roof, and say, that's not sealed, that's not painted. Based on what evidence did he or she make that decision? There is no evidence that's being made. It's a personal, one-person decision. It's not like overgrown grass, which is above a certain number of inches. I mean, you set the standard. There's a certain number of inches. It's not fair for the officer to make the judgment based on subjective evidence, and then that resident have to come in at their own time and expense to defend themselves against this. I'm in favor of our residents, not our code officers, and I'd hope we tweak out the language somehow to make that a little bit more definitive.
Okay, but I mean, I'm just trying to figure out which language are you suggesting so we could actually find out, you know, which what is acceptable to hear, because I think if we get into the area that basically the code enforcement has to determine how long this roof has been coated, when was it painted, I think you may get into areas that basically either it would be impossible to issue a citation, or probably it would have to be very much I'm not even sure if it's reasonable to actually make that determination. So I'm just trying to figure out, you know, trying to help out with the kind of language. And I think, you know, if we really want to get in this area, the only thing we could say, you know, excluding, you know, roofs. Then if we are excluding roofs, then do we have another section of the code that deal with roofs that need repair? So
well, you certainly want to have a standard in place. I certainly am open to taking the time over the next 2 weeks to come up with language. I know there are people who are here to speak on it tonight. But the point I'm making, just generally and overall, if we need to continue this to the next meeting for me to come back with specific language, I gladly will. But the point I'm making is this. The driver is making a subjective decision based on what he or she sees from eye level from the street, doesn't stop and ask the resident how long ago it was that their roof was sealed, doesn't ask what type of tile I mean, this doesn't even talk to types of roofs, shingles versus tiles versus flat versus pitched versus all number of things. It just says roofs shall be sealed or painted. And I just don't think it's fair to residents who now have to come in and defend themselves against this, and I'm looking for a way to provide our residents relief.
Well, I think, you know, I mean, I think the you know, so far the city attorney laid out, you know, pretty much all other cities got pretty much, you know, the same kind of code. But I mean, you know, I mean, it's best to really fix the codes, and if the codes really need fixing, and I'm open to hear any suggestion on which way is the best way to proceed. But I think the issue of, you know, having to, you know, rule because there's a special case before the magistrate, I think, you know, there's an issue with that. So if the issue is, you know, I mean, I guess if the resident would like to give us some additional language, we'll take that, and from there we'll come back here in 2 weeks to see exactly where we at in terms of the code language that we may or may not want to use. So sir, I'm going to open public hearing on tab O. Public hearing is now open on tab O. Yes, sir.
William Previtel, 11950 North Bayshore Drive, registered architect. It seems like the terminology of whether the product decays or not, or it's compromised in some way, that would not apply to roofing materials. They're inherently, even though everything will decay and come apart, everything will over time, their initial intention is not to be. They're supposed to be preventative measures. They're most of the most basic roofing materials, whether it be built up bitumen and tar paper, or the tile roofs, or asphalt shingles, and you can go on, standing seam metal roofs. All these things, they may come with preventative coating, they may not, but they're all intended to be protective measures for the inside. It's very hard to say that it is a, what was the terminology? I'm sorry, the not decaying, but a
deterioration.
Deterioration. Again, everything will deteriorate, but roofing materials are initially intended not to deteriorate. And I would say that it is going It's not necessarily using the resources of our city to go, hunt these situations down, unless it's something that there's an active leak and something faulty with the roof, and then even then it might not be a coating, it may just be an overlap, it may be a crack, it may be some other separation due to heating and cooling cycles that have opened something up, that not always a protective coating would do it. You could have a protective coating over some types of roofs, and you still, because you didn't really address the basic cause of water coming in, you may not be able to solve the problem of water infiltration. But it just seems like it would be the individual owner that if they have an active leak, that they will take it upon themselves, we would hope, to remedy the situation without the city coming in and just saying it's coated just for the sake of not being coated, just by driving by, because it may be no problem at all with anything on the interior and maybe serving its purpose. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Carol Keys, 12550 Palm Road. I actually thought that this discussion would be a little bit directed to the tarps in our city, and if we were changing language, if we could address tarps, blue tarps on people's roofs, maybe the length of time tarps are allowed. There are tarps in our city that are in shambles, shredded, pieces are flying around the neighborhood, and during a hurricane, it's really, they're no longer protecting the roof. And there's tarps that have been up in our city since Katrina Wilma, which is like, I guess, 5 or 7 years ago. And I think we should be addressing that situation because those look really terrible. They're shredding. And just on a personal level, I did get cited many years ago for, I have a gray cement roof, and I got cited because they said my roof needed to be painted. So we don't paint cement, and I don't even think they're ever even sealed, and it's a very old roof. So want to make sure that people aren't forced to seal or paint something that doesn't need it, and maybe we should be looking into someone with more building experience and materials to address the types of how you're supposed to protect your roof to make it. I think it's really an aesthetic appearance that you're looking for on this as far as code enforcement. Thank you.
Good evening, Frank Rowland, 12865 West Dixie Highway. I'm appearing here on behalf of Mr. and Mrs. Stiles, who live at 13245 Coronado Drive. They have a cement shingle roof. That's a
I'm sorry, can we really address that issue?
This matter cannot be addressed now because it's being heard before the special magistrate.
Just
so that you don't set precedents, I really am sorry to interrupt you, Mayor, but just be careful that when people have matters that are being heard before the special magistrate, I don't know that we want to set the precedent of having them come before council simultaneously to have some type of remedy. If you open the door and allow this person to do so, you may be opening the door to let everybody else who has issues before the special magistrate to come before council to say, hi, I have a particular situation that I want you, council, to remedy, rather than going through the process. I mean, you've already stated who you're here for and who you represent.
I have to state who I'm here for because I'm being paid to be here. So I'm registered as a lobbyist, as I'm required to do, and I'm required by law to state who I represent. I would not ever not do that. I have not only an obligation to my client, but I think a First Amendment right on their behalf to address an issue. Now, I won't talk about their roof and their situation. I'll talk about my roof, or the roofs of people who have cement shingles, clay, Cuban tiles, barrel tiles, asphalt shingle roofs. So many roofs are not intended to be painted. And they're not painted, and they shouldn't be painted. Other people, like Ms. Keys, who said she has a concrete roof, it's in its natural state, and frankly, that's the green and preferred way for it to be, because if you start walking around on her 30 or 40 or 20-year-old roof, the concrete shingle, which just protects the roof paper, is going to perforate the roof paper, and it's going to have a bunch of leaks. So it's reasonable to talk about fixing a law, generally speaking, when the law doesn't make any sense. In other words, this law says you will paint the entire exterior of the building. It doesn't talk about roofs, just talks about exterior surfaces of a structure used for human habitation. So clearly, this law is broke and needs a little fixing, because I'm sure that the people who drafted it did not intend that people with barrel tile roofs, which are, I think, brown or reddish in color, should paint them. That's not ever the intent. So my suggestion is that you ask staff and the city attorney to perhaps take a look at this ordinance and see if it can't be improved. And I would suggest that you say exterior portions of a structure that are intended to be painted should be painted, and that roofs should simply be maintained. So that if a roof has leaks and it has blue tarps, you can cite those people because they're not maintaining their roofs. Take the issue of paint away from the roof, because most of the time it simply doesn't belong there. Thanks so much.
Okay, thank you.
May it please the Mayor Council. Douglas Hindmarsh, 12780 North Bay Shore Drive. I would tend to mirror what Mr. Former Mayor said, Mr. President Mayor, and Commissioner Galvin. One city code, Madam City Attorney didn't read, is Coral Gables, and as a former hearing officer and special magistrate, Coral Gables will not allow you to paint a roof. If you paint a roof in Coral Gables, you will be cited for a code violation. The problematic part that I have with your code language, and I sat on your code board for 10 years, is I think it was, I'd have to actually read it, all surfaces subject to deterioration. Everything, including my skin, is subject to deterioration. And when my telomeres get short enough, I'm going to die. Cobalt lasts 2,000 years before it half-lives. But it, too, is subject to deterioration. Imagine, the cobalt that was founded when Jesus walked the earth is still half as radioactive as it was then. Now, this building won't last that long, but it, too, is subject to deterioration. Don't worry about fixing the roofs. Fix the law. Thank you, Mr. Mayor,
Okay.
Council.
Thank you, Douglas. Anyone else wishes to be heard on tab O? Okay, hearing none, public hearing is not closed on tab O. Besides section 5-46, are there any section of the code that deals with roof in the city of North Miami?
No, not directly.
Okay. So basically, I mean, to really, you know, I'm not sure, you know, how we're going to deal with this language, you know, per se. One thing I think that was said, you know, earlier is that, you know, we are currently trying to revamp our city code, bringing it up to date. And is this one of the sections that is being looked at?
I am currently going through each chapter of the entire code, starting with the charter. So we are going through the code, and we'll be revising accordingly and making recommendations to you.
Okay, so this city council would have an opportunity to vote
on the entire, rather than taking it piecemeal.
Okay.
As issues come up, my recommendation would be to go through, you know, each chapter and bring them to you that way.
I respectfully disagree. If we found a problem, if we found something we want to fix, let's fix it. When do you expect to bring the full body of work to us?
Within the next couple of months.
Yeah.
Would that mean October, November?
Yeah, I think the
Let's
issue
say-
is just a recommendation that she's making to us. If we see a section, I mean, this city council, if they see a section they would like to work on, I mean, we could always work on it. I mean, she's just making a recommendation that we looked at it as a whole. I don't think you just said, you know, for us to do it that way, just a recommendation, and it's up to us to make that decision. Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, Madam City Attorney, there's any way we can extend, give them an extensions, since you revising the law, and these people can have an extension while when you finish, then we can proceed with that. Thanks. Is there any possibility of that?
We have given them extensions. We currently gave them a recent extension. So if this is again about a particular case, then if you want to talk about the particular case outside of the process, well,
absolutely not.
Okay. Well, but yes, they've this particular case that we're not talking about.
We're not talking about. So don't
the
talk
one that
about.
we're
Please
not
don't.
talking
Let's not
about.
talk about it.
They have an extension.
Yeah.
Okay, but there's another thing, and like former Mayor Frank Warren just mentioned, we can clear the language, but when we say, I think I'm in line with what he said, and clean the exterior, paint the exterior of the building, but maintain the roof. That seems like it's, I don't know,
Okay.
it seems like logical to me. That's something we can consider and think about it.
But it's up to this city council to make that decision if that's what you want to do. But the second issue is, I'm not sure, you know, I mean, there was something that I took in law school 15 years ago called, you know, once you pass a law today, it cannot be applied retroactively. I mean, does it apply? How do you call that?
Ex post facto.
Ex post facto law. I took that, you know, a long time ago. I didn't do well in that class. So, how do you, I mean, even if we were to make those changes today, would it be applicable to cases that are pending and past cases?
No, it would not.
But I definitely think, and again, everybody keeps wanting to talk about what we're not talking about. You'll notice I specifically did not put the name of the resident or anything in my request, so I want to be on record making that clear. I'm not the one who brought it to this point. It keeps being brought. But if the council has made a decision that we no longer or wish to clarify certain language, we don't want, the special magistrate can certainly take that into account when making his or her decision. That's up to them. But that's not for us to decide or even talk about tonight. I just think it would be fair before code drives up and down streets tomorrow. I don't know how many of these citations are writing monthly, weekly, daily, but I just don't think it's fair to residents to get a citation for not having the roof painted when theirs isn't a roof that necessarily is to be painted. And that's just what I'm looking to clarify. That's the only reason I put this on. So if I might ask for the council, so we don't belabor this, may we ask the manager, may we bring this back in 2 weeks with a specific recommendation of language to consider?
Yeah, can we work with some languages and just on that specific section to see exactly where we at with that? I mean, but there's also the problem. I mean, for example, my roof, you know, in order for you to see my roof, you have to get on a ladder and get on top of it. So let's say if I have those kind of problems, I mean, you know, it's going to be hard to get cited too.
Mayor and council, respectfully, you know, this whole section is dealing with the maintenance and the aesthetics of a dwelling place. Couple things. I am very leery of changing this language because there's a reason why all cities have this very broad particular language. And the spirit of it is that someone does not have a house that goes unpainted or a roof that has mildew on it that goes undone. So I think this is really an aesthetic quality of life. People looking at a house that just makes the neighborhood look bad. So what I think we may need longer than 2 weeks because in sitting down with other cities as to why this language is there, and I will agree that maybe perhaps we need to educate our code enforcement in the considerations that they need to take into account when issuing these. But I also agree that when we have blue tarps, this may be something that may be used. We're not for blue tarps from previous hurricanes 2 or 3 years ago. Then this needs to come into effect. So I think we need to sit down with our code enforcement. I think we need to educate our code enforcement as to the intent of this, and maybe if the education comes to our code enforcement, perhaps moving forward we may not need to change anything. The house in question, I went there, I looked at it, and it's no doubt that that fine was written because someone in that neighborhood made the complaint. So when the pressure came to our code enforcement, they made the complaint. So they took the path of least resistance. Instead of dealing with the activists that put pressure, they wrote the citation. Does the roof have problems? Yes, there is some mildew. But I think we need to look at the spirit of this. There will need to be some education on our code enforcement. So I would like to take longer than 2 weeks to come back with a better situation moving forward, whether to state that we've educated our code enforcement so that you all understand, because this is broad. I think it is good. I think that it gives us the ammunition that we need, the language that we need, that if somebody's roof has shingles that have gone bad, a roof, God forbid, if there's a roof that has turned green, that's mildew, if you take this out, then you're going to take away what you need to deal with that situation. I think that the education moving forward with our code enforcement may be the answer, and to also allow this to go through whatever hearings or pending issues that are out there, let it go through its regular course, and we will probably come up with a better resolution. I'm not in favor of moving this or changing this. Okay. I think the education needs to be on our code enforcement.
Okay, but 3 issues. To begin with, we're not addressing that specific case. That case is going to take its process, whatever it's going through the board. That's number 1. Number 2, I think the education part of it is fine. I think people, code enforcement officers need to know and need to be a little bit more educated. The pressure of someone calling saying that someone is doing something wrong. We know that a lot of it were happening. So that's an issue that I think your department would have to deal with. But in the meantime, can you meet with the individual council members and see, and look at other cities? I think one of them that was not mentioned, let's say Coral Gables, and see exactly, what they have going on in those cities, so we could work on different languages. I mean, if there's no other section in the code that deals with, roofs, then that section there pretty much, give us the leverage in making sure that those roofs are in good condition. So let's meet with the individual members.
And just for your edification as well, it also says, that the exterior must be approved by the building official so that deterioration or peeling shall not occur. If the building official finds that it's not painted, but there's no deterioration, there's no peeling, then that house obviously does not merit a violation. The other cities that I cited, that I read to, whose language is 99% identical to ours, they also don't have any separate roof sections that deals with this. I mean, and I think I'm glad that the city manager mentioned that point. I was remiss in mentioning that it's vague for a reason, so that it can cover all types of potential violations, without getting too narrow. The more narrow it is, then the more difficult it is for us to enforce, and it's also more difficult for for someone who's not pegged into that little hole, for them to meet whatever the criteria is. I mean, the building official is the ultimate decision maker, and we have code sections that say a house must be maintained. I mean, how does one know what maintenance means? Someone could say, well, no, my house is maintained, and someone else can say, no, well, your house is not maintained. I mean, you have language that's always up for interpretation, and that's why you have a independent person that's going to say whether this is fair, judicious, and whether you're interpreting the language correctly or not.
But when we find a spot where there's clearly too vague of an interpretation, I think it's our duty to clarify it and perhaps add some additional language that just makes it, clearer.
Okay. So, Mr. Manager, would you do that, meet with the individuals, so we could get on that? Yes. We're going to move on tab P, Mr. City Clerk.
Request from Douglas Hindmarsh to address 2 issues. 1, livestock farm animals in North Miami, and 2, North Miami providing Wi-Fi within a 3-mile radius from City Hall.
Okay, good evening, Mr. Douglas.
May it please the Mayor Council, Douglas Hindmarsh. I've had a couple of questions in the audience. Everybody rest assured, when I say livestock, I'm not bringing the antelope herd to Miami. What I wrote, it was quoted in part, changing the North Miami ordinance regarding livestock / farm animals to exempt chicken hens only, roosters to remain prohibited. I came across an article that discussed hens. Hens make no noise. They can lay eggs without a rooster. I didn't know that. Free-range hens are a valuable, beneficially nutritious food source. They eat bugs, make great pets. Free-range eggs are heart healthy. My reference to this is the Biscayne Times, page 76, September 2011. If it please the Mayor Council, I'd like to pass the article up through the city manager.
Sure.
And I took significant note that chickens are in the Caribbean culture, and the Caribbean culture is not the wave of the future, it's the wave of now in North Miami. So I think you should change the code. That's all I have to say on chickens. I'm not bringing the antelope to Miami.
Okay. So are you saying chickens are pets?
Not only pets, but right down the street from me, Mr. Mayor, I'm on Coronado Harbor, just over bridge number 2.
Right.
I was taking a walk one night, and I hear this clucking. And I walked over to the fence, and there's 15 chickens. And I figured, wait a minute, I'm a code enforcement hearing officer. How can this guy have farm animals? And then I found out, guess what? Those are the sentinel chickens for West Nile disease. That man worked for some kind of U.S. Department of Agricultural Inspector. He's right there on Biscayne Bay Drive. They're sentinel chickens.
Okay, Miss City Attorney, are chickens not allowed in the city of North Miami?
Let me read to you the applicable section 4-11, keeping fowl, poultry, wild animals, or farm animals within the city prohibited, except for feral cats. The keeping, harboring, and maintaining of fowl, poultry, wild animals, farm animals, and more than 4 pigeons or 4 rabbits shall be strictly prohibited.
Okay, are chickens allowed in the city of North Miami?
Obviously not.
No, they're
No? What about pigeons? Are they allowed in the city of North Miami?
I think they're foul. Pigeons, I don't know what
They definitely are foul.
They're foul.
So they allowed?
No more than 4 pigeons.
Okay. But how come our code enforcement have not cited the city of North Miami for having so many pigeons down here? I mean, that's,
The
just...
city owns pigeons?
I don't know. They were hanging by City Hall.
Those are vultures.
No, they were just earlier today. There was about 7 or 8 pigeons hanging out right here. I mean, if you go out right outside on the window.
But we don't keep them there. They just come here.
Okay.
They're wild. They just
So then if you have chickens in your backyard, so we don't keep chickens.
Well,
so can you cite the homeowner for that too?
I don't know.
I'm just trying to figure out because just was it a couple months ago, my mother called me up. She lives in little Haiti, and she had a bunch of chickens, and she said she was going to Haiti, and she said, "Would you come by and get the chickens, and would you hold them for me in North Miami?" And I thought about it for a minute. Any given day I would have done so. Then I realized, well, North Miami, I'm not sure if we allow chicken, but I didn't know if we allowed chicken in the city. So chicken is not allowed.
No.
Pigeons, even if you have 10.
No more than 4.
Okay, but how come the city of North Miami has not been cited for having pigeons?
I think the manager would be able to better answer that question.
Yes,
Mayor,
sir.
Retired Chief Lom was very discouraged when one of our code enforcement officers was going to cite him for having roosters. He doesn't have any roosters or chickens, but they show up because there's some sort of seed that drops from his tree and they like. So he had to explain to them, they're not mine. So they appear, he doesn't know who they belong to, but they're not his. He's even set out traps. So eventually, he just gave up because the hens started to lay eggs. So he took advantage of the hens laying eggs in his yard. So it's difficult to enforce something that you don't know who the rightful owners are.
Okay.
So it's
So it would have been okay for me to get my mother's chicken and bring them in my backyard.
If you have over 4, well, roosters are not allowed. If we identify that there's a chicken coop or a hen house that a person has set up, then we have enough grounds to cite them at that point. But unfortunately, nobody has, in his area, for instance, we couldn't find anybody that had a hen house or a chicken coop set up to properly cite. So the code enforcement officer in that case moved on.
Okay. What do you want this council to do?
Distinguish the fact that I said roosters will stay prohibited. Trust me, you do not want a rooster in the neighborhood, not at daylight.
Okay.
You do not want a rooster. You will get eggs, but they will not be fertile.